Well, folks, welcome aboard to the great blizzard of 2026, or whatever Disney name they're going to give this one. Some of us are old enough to remember the blizzard of 78 as kids as being memorable. I guess this is the next one that'll go down in the history books. Anyway, it's a little after 9 a.m. now, just after 6 a.m. The grid power went off. Not unexpected. I've gotten several emails from the local power authority saying to expect the power to go out and don't expect much in terms of their ability to fix it, since it's going to be happening so far and wide. So we took a few precautions, but at the end of the day, when the power went out at 6 a.m., my marching orders were pretty simple. First, switch on the wind turbine, which, truth be told, has a certain amount of trouble when it's gusting. Right now it's gusting probably well over 40, even though I'm in a pretty protected little corner from the northeast. Turned on the wind turbine, got out my little kid snow shovel, cleared a ton or so of wet, sticky snow off the boat, got back to the lazarette and pulled out the toolbox heater, which you can probably hear. Got that plugged in, connected, running. The reason I didn't immediately turn on the Wallace furnace is that I knew that the snow had drifted up over the exhaust outlet, and the outlet and the inlet being the same fitting, it's very important that that be clear, otherwise you end up recirculating the exhaust gas. So we went out, shoveled, cleared the deck. Doesn't look like it. 3 hours later, there's another 6 inches of snow anyway. Got the deck cleared off. Made my way up the dock. It's about 300 yards from where I'm at in my slip up to my office, and went up to the office and grabbed Mr. Heater. Not on right now, but I was running him for a little while. Got Mr. Heater, brought him down. That sounds like a simple procedure, but there's about 1.5 feet of snow on the dock, which is kind of pushing it for the single stage snowblower that I brought down and positioned ready to go. It was kind of a slow, sticky process, but better than shoveling. So I cleared the dock, made a path. I did not clear the parking lot because I know they're going to be coming down with a snowplow at some point. Some of the drifts were actually over waist high, but I did make my way up to the office to grab Mr. Heater and have one more tool in the toolbox here, as we are on the dock but off grid. Yesterday, prior to the storm, I took the precaution of shortening my east side number 1 and number 4 dock lines. Shorten those up about 6 inches. I'm glad that I did. I knew they were going to stretch when they got wet, and the wind started to howl out of the northeast. As you can see, it's not on the beam, but what happens in here is the gusts kind of swirl around, and every once in a while one of them does hit you broadside. Anyway, that precaution was useful, though I am still rubbing a little bit on one piling around here on the west side. Fortunately, it's the one piling in my slip that has carpeting on it, so I don't think it'll do any harm. Anyway, at this point, as you can see, the aft deck is buried under 1 foot of snow, probably similar up in the bow, so there's no adjusting those dock lines right now. They are where they are. If we lose a little paint, well, That's not the worst that could happen. So anyway, right now the turbine is kicking on and off in overspeed mode. It doesn't like these 40 knot plus gusts, but it's doing an adequate job keeping the battery voltage up to high 12s. I'll take that. The water heater is still pretty near full temperature, so I'm not too worried about that. So otherwise, life aboard is fairly normal. Toolbox heater is keeping the temperature up nice and warm. 76 right now, a little cooler down below. That's why I flipped on the Mr. Heater for a bit to warm up the cabin sole. At some point, hopefully once it eases up a bit outside, I will probably start the generator to get my water heater temperature back up to full. Right now I do not have the extension for the toolbox heater to blow heat into the bilge on, and that's because it would interfere with the aft electric heater, which is installed while I'm at the dock. So I may have to do something about that, or I may just run the light bulb down there for a little while the generator is running. So there's only been a couple or 3 times maybe that I can remember, over 30 years of living aboard, that we've experienced extended power outage while in on-grid dock mode. Generally speaking, I've been fortunate to be in places where the grid power is pretty reliable. Interestingly, the incidence of power outage seems to be higher or increasing as time goes on. I think we're allocating a lot of our grid resources to new forms of energy and maybe not doing as much maintenance on the old grid structure. Hard to say, but anyway, I know they're doing the best they can, and the power will get turned back on just as soon as they can get it all up and running. I am very fortunate in the number of backup options that I have on Charis, and truth be told, one of the best things that has come from extending my season off-grid, my mooring life extending now to the end of December in the last few years, has taught me a tremendous amount about off-grid systems and keeping the boat comfortable and warm and from freezing when I don't have grid power coming in. So lots of tricks. A lot of those I've shared with you. There'll probably be a few more that come to mind, but right now I am just very grateful to have had the experience of learning about these things, and that's a little bit about what this channel is. It's my desire to share some of these, some simple, some complicated, but all relatively accessible hacks that can make living on a boat just a whole lot more pleasant. You know, it's funny, when you live on a boat in the cold regions, anytime you get a weather event like this, friends, family, lots of well-meaning people are very generous in offering you a place to stay instead of your home. I think there's a perception that living on a boat is a compromise or dangerous thing, or in some way a lesser life than living in a house on land. And there are some things about it that are more challenging. There are some things that I think land dwellers have got it all over the boat life. But in general, this is a deliberate life choice, and so this isn't something that I'm doing because I can't live on land. This isn't something I'm doing because I have something against the idea of living on land. This is a deliberate lifestyle. And so right now it's 76 degrees in the cabin. Power's been out for 4 hours. I've not yet fired up the backup generator, but as I say, I'll probably do that a little bit later. Right now the wind turbine is keeping up with the toolbox heater. I have not yet fired up the Wallace furnace, which I can do and probably will a little bit later on, just to put some heat down low in the cabin sole. Anyway, all to say that if you have deliberately chosen this lifestyle and you've been at it for 30 years, you've probably learned a few things that make it quite comfortable, even in conditions where, frankly, living on land right now would be quite stressful, worrying about power coming back on, the furnace, the pipes bursting, and all of those things. Those are all everyday worries on a boat, so you kind of got a plan for most of that. Yeah, what do you do in a blizzard? I'll tell you what you don't do. The internet. Turns out that when the power goes out, the cell phone towers don't have any power, and if the cell phone is your way of getting on the internet, well, there's no internet. So it's good to be old and break out a book. A double hot chocolate over the dregs of the morning coffee, into which a drop of Bailey's may or may not have accidentally spilled. Helps pass time a little more quickly. Barometer's starting to rise. Probably can't see it. This Means and Plath bar graph is pretty awful display, but it does keep track. Anyway, we've risen about 2 millibar from the low, so obviously the system has now passed to our north, and that's good. That means that the wind will be shifting to the northwest shortly. Get the wood stove going. Well, it's about 1400 now. It's still coming down pretty hard. You can see the accumulation in the cockpit. Looks as though I never shoveled it, even though I did this morning. Just waiting for it to slack up a little bit before I go out and get another ton of snow off the boat. Clear the cockpit, clear the side decks. Maybe do another run down the dock with the snowblower. Later this evening I'll break out the generator, get the water heater back up to full temperature before bed. Toolbox heater is chugging away, keeping the cabin in a nice toasty 70 plus degrees. The wind has, well, it's started to back somewhat. It's about north right now, eventually going around to the northwest. I'm waiting for a little bit more westerly shift. As I mentioned in one of my previous videos, the wood stove doesn't behave well when the wind comes over the side deck that the stack is on. It tends to backdraft with the dinghy and the boom as a backstop for the wind. So I've got to wait until I'm pretty sure that this wind has gone to the northwest, then I can light the wood stove and have one more tool in the toolbox brought into play. One thing being boatbound during a blizzard is good for is reminiscing. I'm quite sure that this storm is going to find itself compared largely to the blizzard of '78 here in New England. So I find myself thinking back to that time in my youth. I was 11 years old. Back then, the Of course, the internet didn't exist, but anytime the snowflakes flew, kids would be glued to our AM radio first thing early in the morning, listening to the voice of the AM broadcaster announcing what schools had decided to close. Someplace called Foster, Gloucester. I don't even know where that is, but they were always the first ones to close, so obviously they got the most snow in our area. Anyway, you'd listen, and when the announcer said the name of your town and told you you had the day off from school, that was a pretty happy moment. The other thing I remember about the 78 blizzard was there was so much snow that after my brother and I had shoveled our driveway, just a relatively short, modest two-car driveway, we had two piles of snow, one at the top and one at the bottom of the driveway, that were higher than our heads. And of course we did what kids will do and turned them into snow forts. I just remember that feeling that well, first of all, digging out a sort of igloo from the snow mound and having a little tiny space to crawl into. I don't know, maybe that's where this whole tiny boat cabin, life on a boat thing started. Certainly something that you think about on a day like today. Well, thank you all for coming aboard this snowy blizzard Monday and spending a little time putting up with my philosophies. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, share, maybe even subscribe. We'll see you next week.